Welcome to Woodburn Rising. My name is Bruce Crane. I'm following Colin Brown on his interview, and pleased to have today Harry Olson, who is a master gardener, and we're going to talk to him about some gardening issues I think you'll be interested in. So, Harry, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
So, first of all, you're a master gardener, and what is a master gardener and what do they? Some people may not be at all familiar with it. I've worked with master gardeners, so I know a little bit about it.
Oregon State University has an extension program called Master Gardeners, and it's an intensive training program. It's like 100 hours, and then a lot of hands-on training, and in the end, a year later, you come out a Master Gardener, and it's basically a service organization for the people of the state of Oregon. Master Gardeners are first developed to a level of expertise with the expectation that they then go out and share that expertise with the community to make the world a better gardening place.
So, do Master Gardeners, you go out and work in parks or at individual homes, or?
We have a demonstration garden in Salem, which is where I live, behind the health department extension office, where we have every imaginable kind of a garden.
So people can go visit that.
It's there for the public.
Yeah.
If you want to know how you grow blueberries, you go to our blueberry garden. If you want to know the little grove of fruit trees or vegetables or asparagus or whatever.
How do people get there? Or you said in back of the health department, is there a number to call or something to?
The juvenile department and the health department are side by side on Center Street.
Okay.
And it's just behind the health department. When you get back there, you'll see a big white picket fence. Everything on the other side is gardening nirvana.
So is there someone there to help? You know, you're right.
Frequently, there's somebody there. You can ask them whatever you'd like. There are
No,
rose
that's great.
gardens.
I want to go by there now.
Yeah, there are rose gardens. There are perennials, annuals.
Yeah.
Pollinator-friendly garden. I mean, we have everything back there.
Very interesting. Yeah. So you took this Master Gardener program and became a Master Gardener, but you have some specialties, as I understand it. So talk about those.
My interest is in edible gardening.
Okay.
I think the epitome of, I mean, I like growing roses too for my wife, but I like to be able to consume what I grow.
So vegetables,
fruits, that sort of thing.
Right. So you can look at fruit trees.
I have fruit trees.
I have the whole gamut. Yeah.
And basically, a big component of the Master Gardener program is education. I do public speaking all around the state to garden clubs and seminars and TV shows and radio shows and that sort of thing, kind of sharing what we've learned about gardening and giving people helpful hints to become better, more successful gardeners, which is why I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I live in Salem in a small, what you would call a small urban setting. It's a 1,300 square foot house. From my back door to the back fence is 20 feet. It's 22 feet on this side, and it's about 60 feet wide. Most people living in a location like that would say, well, I don't have enough room to really garden. The traditional way you think of gardening is get out the tiller and the flat land. Well, I've developed
a field of corn or something.
The field of corn, or pumpkins. I've developed intensive urban gardening techniques that are very successful for people in the smallest of yards. And it basically takes, if you had let's say a watermelon or a cantaloupe, if you grow it on the ground, it takes a lot of space.
Sure.
Okay? I run that up a trellis vertically, and it takes a space about this wide. and then the rest
Well,
of
some of these
is in
things you
height.
can't grow here in Oregon.
Some
and
things-
you can, right? And I'm not sure which ones
Well,
you can. or can't.
what you can grow, if you can grow it vertically, you can do it in a very small space.
Right.
The other thing that I discovered, like with cantaloupes, I've never seen cantaloupes grown anywhere but on the ground. And I read Bartholomew's square foot gardening book, and he says, oh, you ought to try it on a trellis. Well, I did. Holy mackerel. Talk about happy cantaloupes. Lots of them, big ones.
And then they taste better too when they're happy.
Well, anything that's homegrown
Yeah,
and ripened on the vine.
So can we grow cantaloupes here?
Yes. In
So,
fact,
yeah, let's not talk about anything we can't grow here.
oh no, I only talk about things you can grow.
So we can grow watermelons and cantaloupe. And
Yes. Now, watermelons and cantaloupe are marginal here, very marginal. If you go like to Hermiston, you have the world-class big watermelons. It's much warmer in the summer, much
Yeah, that's what I
more
thought,
conducive.
yeah.
However, now it's possible to buy a grafted cantaloupe or a grafted watermelon, and they grow just like they are in Hermiston. In
So
that same,
they don't, because they're grafted to something else, they don't need the heat, or they?
no,
Or-
what grafting does, grafting is taking two plants and taking the best characteristics of both plants and combining them into one superior plant. The rootstock, what goes in the ground, is usually from a disease-resistant, very vigorous plant, and then you attach to the top of that by means of a graft, whatever it is, your watermelon plant. Okay?
Right.
And the root systems are huge and vigorous on these rootstocks, and they're able to produce a crop in our marginal environment here, almost as good as if you were in Hermiston. And in that same demonstration garden that I described earlier, I did side-by-side trials, ungrafted and grafted watermelons.
Well, that's
and
another
cantaloupes.
one of your expertise, is it not? That's
Oh.
fairly unusual. Is
Probably
grafting.
best known for my work in grafted vegetable gardening. Anyway, it's dramatic. The ungrafted plant is kind of pathetic.
So
and the
is this-
grafted one is, we had, in fact, the Mike Darcy radio show did a live thing from our site, and we invited the public to come, and we cut up melons and fed everybody. Very successful. So no, there are ways. It's a matter. You need to hook up with some master gardener training classes and learn some of these techniques that can make your gardening much easier.
So for the homeowner out there, or someone who wants to grow vegetables, edibles in their backyard, and do they need to know how to graft, or?
I don't
Should-
recommend that they do their own grafting. I actually teach grafting to the advanced horticulture folks at Chemeketa, but it's kind of it's not rocket science, but it's intense. The grafting part, cutting it and putting them together, is easy. But then you go into a 7-day, very controlled environment, total darkness, and then slowly add some light.
Wow.
Absolute control temperature, absolute control humidity. It's not worth it if you've got 2 or 3 tomato plants. Just go buy a grafted tomato and.
So you can buy these that are grafted to a root system that works in.
That's
this-
what you do.
Yeah.
And the two brands that you will. This was brought to us by Alice Doyle. Mighty Mado, which is a loghouse plants out of Cottage Grove. She literally brought it to the home gardener. And the brand is Mighty Mado, and then the Mighty Veggie. And either of those, if you buy them, will have a grafted rootstock. And for the limited, if I have 2 or 3 of any kind of plant, I'm way ahead to just buy it.
Right.
Instead of
So you're
going-
going to do much better though with this grafted. I know
Oh.
people plant tomatoes and it didn't work so well, so they get discouraged. But they just, I think, just bought a normal tomato plant.
In 2011, I did when they first became available, I saw the pictures of the grafted and ungrafted. I thought this can't possibly be true. Well, I was wrong. I did side-by-side trials in the public garden, and we got as much as 10 times more fruit. The fruit's earlier. It fruits for a month after the regular tomato is dead. The grafted one's still going. Bigger, I mean, it's like the checklist for everything you wanted your tomato to be. And it doesn't, when you graft, it's not GMO. That's what.
Okay, good point.
Because, you know, I run from GMO. It's kind of like putting a supercharger on your car.
Right.
It doesn't change your car, except it's got a lot more power. And that's kind of how it works. This rootstock provides disease resistance, extraordinarily large root system, and energy and disease resistance, and you just get the superior plant.
So just a quick question here: Do in commercial farming situations, do they do the same thing here, or do they just get all the tomatoes from, California or something? I don't know the answer to that, but that's why I'm asking. Interestingly
enough, when I first researched this, after I saw the territorial ad for these things, I discovered they've been doing this for 35 years in the Northeast in greenhouses and high tunnels. And the reason they do it is you can't grow a similar plant time after time in the same hole because all the opponents of that plant, the critters that are after it, the diseases, congregate there waiting for the next one. And pretty soon you've got to either move your greenhouse or you've got to fumigate it with very toxic, harmful things. Well, what they found is if you use these wild tomatoes with all this natural resistance, you can plant them again and again and again in the same hole, and they're immune to the bad guys. So in that sense, it is being done and has been done for almost 4 decades. But it's somehow a complete mystery to me how that didn't find its way to the community at large, because it's so enormously helpful, like to a home gardener.
To the home gardener, right?
Yeah,
and that's what we're
talking about
today, and that's where. You call it intensive urban gardening. So a smaller space. So you're talking about doing things on a trestle or something vertically. Trellises, and at the same time, you're talking about using some grafting that intensifies the production, so to speak.
What I recommend for the intensive urban gardener is by all means grow anything that will grow vertically.
So can't grow carrots vertically.
No, or cabbage.
But the vine kinds of things.
Tomatoes, eggplants. Actually, eggplants kind of are like a tree. By the way, eggplants are grafted onto tomato rootstock, and they are one of the most responsive. I mean, huge. I don't like eggplants, but I grew them for years because they're so beautiful.
Tomato and eggplant, you get a.
You what?
When you graft, whatever you graft on is what you're going to get, that fruit.
Right.
And then the rootstock that you've grafted to
determines its nutrient capturing capability, its disease resistance, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, cantaloupes, watermelons. They even have like grafted basils and things like that. But any grafted plant that you can get will be much more productive. And if you have a marginal gardening situation, I used to sit on and answer the helpline, and people would call and say, I have one place for tomato plants right outside my back door. I don't have any other choices.
You mean where the sun comes in or something?
Well, they only have that much soil,
Well, it's that too, yeah.
And it used to be a nice tomato plant, and now it's just terrible. And I said, well, that's because you can't grow the same thing again and again because of this congregation of undesirable collect there. And I used to say, I don't have anything for you. Well, now I have something for you. Buy a grafted plant, and it'll prosper there. Now, let me give you an idea what prosper means. Now, granted, this is my best tomato. But I grew a tomato 2 years ago. I have a picture of a caliper on the stalk at ground level, 2 inches in diameter. I couldn't cut it with the pruners. I had to saw it.
And that's this you've grafted to this stalk material?
Well,
or this
no, this is
root?
the fully grown tomato plant on top of the rootstock. And that tomato is 14 feet tall.
Wow.
Okay.
Tomato plant.
Now, most of my tomatoes run about 9-10 feet, and hugely prolific. Anyway, grow vertically. If you want to see how to make the trellises and examples of this, you can go to harrysgarden.org and then just poke around. There are lots of pictures. There are some presentation slides in there on how you construct the trellises and the materials list and how you make raised beds and all that sort of thing. It would be a good start for them.
So can you like go to Al's garden and get these?
Absolutely. Grafted tomatoes, grafted.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think they
So
have
everything's out
several
there,
different
so-
kinds.
So if I want to grow tomatoes, then I would think I'd want to do this grafted and grow them vertically anyway. It's easier to pick, and it sounds like it's easier all the way around and more prolific.
You
as
know,
said.
tomatoes, I don't even talk about growing tomatoes vertically because I would never consider anything else. In prior lives, I grew tomatoes on the ground. What a mess.
Well, but
Stepping around them, they lay on the ground, the
Right.
bugs get them,
Yeah.
everything's wrong. They sprawl. Now my tomato plants come up in cages, just like in a row, and I walk up and I just pick them like this. No bugs. And they get more
good.
sun up here. They don't rot, they have better air circulation. I mean, everything is better about growing vertically.
So growing the non-vertical vegetables, what about that? How you can't intensify that, can you? Or really?
Well, you can, but basically the garden's broken into what'll grow vertically. And when you plant that, always plant that on the north side of your growing area because the sun will come from the south. And like I usually have a row of peppers in front of my row of tomatoes. The tomatoes are tall and get their sun. The peppers are shorter and they're in front. If I wanted to grow carrots or whatever, I would grow them on the south side of the growing area. So they don't get shaded by anything. And then if you read Bartholomew's book, which if you're just starting in gardening, it's a good place. You grow beyond that, but it's a good place to start. Some people put rows this far apart and space everything. I tend to really shorten things up and get a lot more production out of a smaller area. And just so you don't now, you probably couldn't do that if you had 40 acres, okay, or you got to run a tractor down here. But we don't have 40 acres, It's like 40 inches to the other side of my, and I can manage all of that, and I can thin if I need to. So don't be afraid to plant closer. And then the early harvest is, between. So you get your small carrots, and then you've left room to grow big carrots.
So a typical, somebody wants to have a small space and they want to grow some vegetables in there. What do you recommend they grow? I mean, I guess, maybe carrots are available year round and you wouldn't grow carrots, but
the
what's the easiest thing, and, things that are going to work, you're going to be successful because you buy this grafted plant, so I want people to be, and I want to, if I'm going to do it, I want to be successful right off the off the get-go. So
90 some odd percent of all vegetable gardens. That's my phone. 90% of all vegetable gardeners grow tomatoes. Okay, and there's probably nothing that is better homegrown than a tomato, because
and they're expensive.
they're expensive. They're vine ripened. They're not plastic like the market has.
The problem seems to be you get them all at once, and then you have thousands of tomatoes.
You don't have to do that. There's two kinds of plants. Determinate plants harvest over maybe a 2 or 3 week period, mostly 2 week, where all the fruit comes at once.
Right.
Now, if you wanted to can all your tomatoes, that'd be the kind you want. I don't grow any determinate plants. I grow what's known as an indeterminate plant. And it produces from early in the season until the day it freezes a continuous crop of fresh vegetables. And that's what I just think indeterminate if you want an extended crop.
Right.
Now
So- Go ahead.
let me, if you haven't grown a tomato before, let me suggest you can go over to Al's or any place that you can find a grafted mighty tomato. Stupus, S-T-U-P-I-C-E, is a great way to start as a tomato, maybe that big, extremely prolific, extremely early, delicious, thin-skinned. It's a great tomato. First one of those I ever grew. The seed catalog, this wasn't even grafted. It said you get 80, average of 80 tomatoes. So I thought, well, I'm going to count it, see how honest they are.
Right.
By the first week of September, I was at 238.
Wow.
And at the end of October, on the last night before the big freeze, I got my 400th ripe tomato. And there were still 75 green tomatoes on the plant. So you can feed the neighborhood with this one plant. It's delicious,
you're
it's
talking about
early.
one plant
I'm talking
grown-
about one plant.
And-
And now grafted, you get even more.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Now, let me give another Master Gardener plug. The first weekend, Friday, Saturday of May, the Master Gardeners have, in Marion County, have a plant sale. And one other Master Gardener with similar interest to me, the two of us select all the varieties that will be sold of the tomatoes and peppers and that sort of thing. And we won't sell you anything that won't prosper here. It is altogether possible to pick a plant that might do really well in Oklahoma, but not so well in Salem, Oregon,
Right.
or Woodburn, Oregon.
Right.
So it's very safe to go to the Master Gardener sale. If we sell it, it's going to do well here. And we don't offer grafted there, but we offer good varieties. And we're very popular. The sale starts at 4 on a Friday afternoon, runs to 7, and then Saturday. The lines are at 4 o'clock on Friday, 100 to 200 yards long.
Wow.
And they come rushing across the field. It's almost unsafe to be there selling vegetables. Well, we've developed such a following because we give them good varieties and they come back the next year for more.
Right.
But that's a very safe. Now, this is the vegetable part. This sale also has every other imaginable kind of plant.
Right. Well, we're talking, we haven't even gotten into decorative kind of
Right.
gardening and that sort of thing, which is interesting too. And I like grasses and some of the other things. So there's a lot to talk about. But can you go online like Master Gardeners, Salem, Oregon, and is there? You guys have
Just
that?
Google Marion County Master Gardeners.
Okay.
And that'll take you to a place where you can get some information. The classes are held once a year. You usually start the first week of January and run for 3 months.
You mean to
a
become
day a
a
week.
Master
To
Gardener,
become,
or?
that's the academic part. And it's followed by mentored training on a help desk, mentored training in the demonstration garden, that sort of thing. It's really a good way to become a pretty knowledgeable gardener. in that first year.
So become a knowledgeable gardener versus not becoming a master gardener, but are there short-term kinds of things or brochures, or I'm just, so something simple or getting online, like here's some text on, you want to grow tomatoes, what you went through, here's the name of, what to get, how to get the information. Or is that?
There's a lot of information out on the
So
internet.
maybe we'll be there.
I generally provide the information, so I don't collect it.
Right. So I just wondered, though, the Master Gardener program and what the knowledge that you have, it's getting to that and getting, I don't know that every Master Gardener has that information. Maybe they do.
Master gardeners vary like plants vary. They are experts in different things. This grafted vegetables, vegetable gardening, intensive gardening are kind of my bailiwick.
Right.
Watch your local garden clubs. One of the main things the Master Gardeners do is train and teach and lecture. And I do that all around the state. And
but
it's an opportunity.
People want to, they decide at some point, well, I'm going to grow some tomatoes. So they don't, to get the information at that time and to call, well, we can give them your number and they can call you.
Actually, what I really encourage people to do is to partner with people with like interests. There's a garden club, there's a very active garden club here. I've spoken to it several times, and we've had whole Master Gardener series that we've presented to them. And their speakers are always advertised in the paper. And watch, and when you have, when it says Master Gardener can talk about tomatoes, go. Or whatever you're into, or roses, or whatever.
Sure. It's very interesting. I've enjoyed having you on the show, enjoyed talking with you, and I think, now I know that there's another alternative than having a failed kind of garden. And because I don't know, because I didn't have the information, and now I know where to get it. And I really appreciate that, and I hope more people get involved.
Well, and if you have a group or club or something and you would like Master Gardeners, just call. There's a help desk for Master Gardeners at the OSU Extension in Salem, and they'll hook you up to our Speakers Bureau, or if you want somebody, if you want me, just ask for me.
Sounds good, Harry. Really appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you for watching Woodburn Rising.